Hello everyone, welcome back to my BlazBlue Alter Memory breakdown and review series. This is the second episode called the AZURE Successor. This is essentially just the final episode of the Calamity Trigger parts of BlazBlue Alter Memory, and it leads into the Continuum Shift parts. It's not completely the entire Calamity Trigger part, but it's the final episode of Calamity Trigger. So yeah, from this point on, everything's going to be mostly Continuum Shift oriented, because Calamity Trigger only really got 2 episodes out of Alter Memory, while the Continuum Shift parts take up the rest of the 10 episodes. So yeah, I just wanted to inform you of that before I started making this video, because if you guys ever notice that something's kind of off, you can definitely tell that, yeah, it's already near the end of, like, it's really the end of Calamity Trigger. So without further ado, let's move on to the next episode, the AZURE Successor. So the episode begins off with Ragna fighting off Hakumen, with Ragna himself not being able to do much to Hakumen. Overseeing the battle is yet again Rachel, who comments that it is ever the same, and says that it is Kokonoe's cue to enter the stage. Hakumen claims that destroying Ragna will prevent a great calamity, but before he can strike him down, a set of magic circles halts his movement, which Hakumen, cursing that the Grimalkin had used Phenomenon Intervention. This Grimalkin is none other than Kokonoe, who had attempted to restrain Hakumen, but he had managed to break out of it. Kokonoe tells Ragna to bail and that he has no chance against Hakumen, but Ragna says that running from a fight isn't his style. Ragna then decides to activate the BlazBlue and rush at Hakumen, signaling Hazama, Rachel, and Noel that something is about to happen. As Ragna and Hakumen fight, Rachel says that everything that has happened up until now is known to her, but beyond it, it is unknown. Noel reaches the Kagatsuchi cauldron and notices that she has been there before, and things felt familiar to her. Ragna's azure glows in response to the cauldron. Noel then slips into a robotic mode, and Nu arrives to the scene, reusing animation from the first episode when she faced Ragna for the first time, telling her to state who she is. Still in her robotic tone, Noel states that she is the Boundary Interface Prime Field Device number 12, while Nu is an anti-Sankishin core unit and the Boundary Interface Prime Field Device number 13, otherwise known as Nu, which is the first time we actually hear her name stated. Nu tells Noel that her existence is a paradox and that she should self-destruct. Noel says no and that her existence is a priority. Nu then decides to eliminate Noel and the two begin the battle. Noel shows off the best animated thing in the entire show, that being when she summons Bulwark for the very first time. Noel then snaps back to normal, wondering why she was even fighting Nu in the first place. Noel was also attacking out of reflex and had no control over her actions. Despite heavily injuring Nu, Nu continued to get up and walk towards Noel, leading Noel to fall down on herself. As Nu restores herself and prepares to kill Noel, Noel fears for her life and has a flashback to meeting Jin, her best friends, and a younger Ragna. Before Noel is killed, Ragna leaps and blocks Nu's attacks, saving Noel in the process. Excited to see Ragna again, Nu is overjoyed and asks him if their last go-around was at Akitsu, the 9th hierarchical city, though the anime doesn't tell you that. Ragna claims that he doesn't care and that she is going to be broken, not killed like a person. Nu tells Ragna that she hates the world just like him and continues to mess with Ragna, telling him that the last time they fought, Ragna brutally attacked her over and over, smiling while he did it. Ragna tells her to shut up and not to talk with her face, since that disgusted him. Nu also says that she has a new body and can talk, unlike the last time they fought each other. Nu says that she and Ragna are a lot alike, how they both want to destroy everything in the entire world, including the world itself, and that they can easily do it together. Ragna and Nu begin fighting, knocking out Noel during the skirmish. All the while, Hazama steps into the conflict and oversees it. Ragna sees a silhouette of his sister within Nu, telling her to stop looking at him with her face, and he charges at her once again. Unfortunately, before Ragna gets to activate his Azure Grimoire, Nu runs them both through with her blade, with Rachel commenting that the play has come to an end. Nu then uses the summoning chant for the Azure Grimoire, but activates her Murakumo unit instead. Ragna attempts to activate the BlazBlue, but fails to do so. Ragna eventually gives up, telling Nu that he also hates the world and whatever Nu is planning, he's in on it and that mankind deserves it all, upsetting Rachel and shocking Hazama. Rachel claims that the two will become a beast that will devour the world. Seeing Ragna fall in, Noel rushes to save him, telling him not to give up. Ragna flashes back to a memory of his younger sister also telling him to never give up, cutting back to Noel who catches his hand, saving him from falling into the cauldron as Nu falls in herself. Rachel is shocked while Hazama is elated, saying, "About effing time." Noel pulls Ragna up and repeatedly calls him a dummy for giving up. Somewhat annoyed, Ragna tells her that he gets it already and thanks Noel for saving him. Noel rushes off to get a doctor and Rachel teleports to Ragna, thanking him for saving her from her boredom. Ragna asks Rachel about who Noel is, and Rachel claims that Noel is now the new I, the successor to the Azure and the Calamity Trigger. Rachel also says that Noel will inherit the true Azure, not the Azure Grimoire fake that Ragna bears as a replacement arm. She goes on to say that time can freely move again, and that even she doesn't know what time will take them all next, but take them it shall. Rachel leaves as Ragna wonders that if his Azure is so powerful, how could it possibly be a copy? Noel returns to Ragna with a big smile on her face as she rushes back to him with medical supplies, though Ragna comments that she looks exactly like his sister. After the credits, Rachel floats high above the atmosphere, saying that time can move forward once again, and that while Hazama concerns her, her main attention is focused squarely on the Nox Nictoris, Gigant Take Mikazuchi. Now, my overall thoughts this episode is kind of mixed because on one hand, this episode is rushing through the stuff really quickly, but at the same time, I did like some of the things they did here. One of my favorite things about this episode is actually kind of the fight scenes and whatnot, because, well, some of it. With Noel starting off with against Nu, it wasn't that bad. It started to get a little kind of janky afterwards, but it wasn't so bad. I was like, eh. Though seeing freaking Nu literally knee Noel into a wall was funny as hell. Some of the parts with Hakumen versus Ragna were pretty well done, somewhat. They try to mask it by having dust clouds cover most of the characters as they fought, which they tried to sneak that away, but there were some parts that were done okay. It wasn't that bad. Honestly, this episode wasn't too bad. Honestly, it did rush through stuff a lot quickly. I mean, Hakumen really doesn't do much, though. I mean, to be fair, he doesn't really, get to do much in the Calamity Trigger anyway in the beginning, so what? But, Noel coming out as a prime field felt completely out of left field. Like, I know all this stuff is going to happen, but, like, a person starting off with it seems like it comes out of left field, especially when they don't really elaborate too much on it until the end of the anime, but that's a different discussion. But, like, it's too early to kind of reveal Noel as the fifth prime field, knowing that it just doesn't really crop up all that much as the show goes on. Nu wasn't actually a problem, though. Having, like, the thing about Nu is that, like, she kind of crops up as, like, this villain. You don't know really anything about her. You just know that Ragna knows that she looks like his sister. And after Nu kind of dies, you don't really know much about that. She kind of just fades away into the background. She doesn't really exist anymore after that. Which sucks because, like, they could have really did something with Nu before, if they had another episode to expand on Nu, maybe. But, Nu kind of pops up, she attacks, she dies. So, she tells Ragna, hate the world, we'll fuse together, boom, the end, like, end of the world. Because they don't really do much for her backstory, they kind of gloss it over. But otherwise, this episode wasn't that bad. It was rushed way too fast, but it wasn't that bad. But it does set for things to come. And unfortunately, these things, they have to take some of these Calamity Trigger parts and dump them into the Continuum Shift parts, which it's all over the place. But trust me, you can see why this second episode really hurts the rest of the series. And I don't hate this episode, but damn, this episode really is a detriment to the rest of the anime. But otherwise, I'm out here, guys. See you all for episode 3.